Good evening, everyone. I'm so excited to be in community with y'all on this Friday evening. Um, you could be anywhere, but you chose to be here with us this evening, and I'm just grateful. So we're hosting a special Stand Down Live edition. The day is intentional, but we're celebrating Dr. King's legacy beyond, I think, what most of us may have learned in the public school or the textbooks that we may have read. We're going to talk about Dr. King's legacy and how it transcends to today. We're going to, really just have a deep conversation with the dynamic panel that's here with us today around making sure that we take some actionable takeaways from this session. And so while it's a reflection, it's also a call in to action. So I'm really excited to get started. If you are joining us either here on Zoom or on Facebook, we're also streaming live there. If you have this link and you're watching us, please share it on your personal page, across your group pages, to invite people into this conversation. We have folks monitoring the chat. If you have questions, we also have folks that are on the Facebook end that will be able to share your questions with us today. So if you have questions during this during our agenda, we can definitely field those questions. So please interact with us, use the chat. I think it's so important for us to just really be in dialogue and community this evening. This is a safe space where everyone comes into this space with their own understanding and I would say life experience. So, this is an opportunity for us to learn and grow past what we know. And so that definitely requires us to open our chest and to exercise and flex compassion and empathy. So I'm excited for y'all to be in here with us on a Friday night. So our panel, and I say panel because that's like the webinar thing to say, but these are really just people who I am in deep relationship with and consider, movement family. We have Michael D, who is on our West Coast, who's a veteran, who will go through his experiences and share some good talk with us as we connect the King legacy. We have Michael M, who is also out on the West Coast, who will come in and share his perspective as well. We have Miles Megacyph in the building, who is a co-host of Stand Down, but is in a different capacity today. But Miles, I am so happy to have your talent and just your mind in this conversation and roundtable today. So thank you for sharing your art. And, Adrian, who is, the VFP president of the board, who has been really instrumental in this moment around how are we exercising this muscle for, as veterans, what is our call to action, not just our reflection. And so thank you for being here with us this evening, Adrian. And without further ado, I want to do a formal introduction of our esteemed panelist, Jamala, who comes out of the Midwest region. And so I'm excited to have you fill this space with your knowledge and wisdom. It is so good to have you on. And right before your talk, I'll do a more detailed introduction. So I just want to hear you all's voices really quickly. If we can just go around and maybe take a minute to just say hey to the people, maybe, and just say, the reason why you're excited to be or looking forward to this conversation this evening in a minute or less. Let's say Michael D.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Michael Dempsey. I'm currently living in what I consider a small town on the central coast of California. I'm a draftee. I spent 1 year in Vietnam. I'm most excited about this talk today. Dr. King was one of my heroes, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. And this is the first time I've had a chance to exchange with Jamal.
Michael McPherson.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael McPherson, member of Veterans for Peace. 30 years ago today, I was in the Gulf, getting ready to, or I'm not sure of the exact date. Maybe we were already starting the air war. So I'm glad to be here just because I made it back home for one reason. But another reason is because to talk about Dr. King's legacy in terms of how he's impacted my life and made me understand that I have a responsibility to other things as well, but Dr. King in a big way, that I have a responsibility to work for peace, not only for my people as a Black man, I'm a child of the diaspora, but as a human and as a person living on this planet. Because if we don't figure this thing out, we're going to destroy ourselves. So here I am.
Thank you for being here. Miles?
Peace and plenty, peace and power. My name is Miles Megacyph. Mental energies gather and circulate in positive harmony. I'm a veteran, member of Veterans for Peace. I'm a new board member. Thank you, Adrian, for talking me into getting on the board. Michael M for also doing some of that talking. And I'm a listener. I'm a talker, not so much, but I like to listen and think. And I'm a father and a chef, and I believe in diversity and the necessity for biodiversity in our food and definitely in our conversation. We have to be open to ideas and open to cultures, open to accepting cultures. And yeah, so my children are playing upstairs and you might hear music. We have a musical house. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you. Looking forward to sharing today. Thank you.
Adrian, say hey to the people.
Yeah, thank you. Adrienne Kinney, Army veteran. I've actually spent now much more time in the peace movement than I did in the military, but it's still a process of unpacking and learning, how we can continue to think about how our experiences in the past affect our present and future, and how being open to thinking through things from a new perspective is just always important. So I really appreciate having the space to share with you all this evening, and not only to remember Dr. King's message, but to honor the fact that the world is saying to us and powers that be in the world that, they don't want nuclear weapons, amongst many changes. I think the rest of the world is trying to encourage United States and other countries to take. So I've always thought that it's going to take the world organizing in order to make a difference. And, it can start in the rest of the world, but it also can start right here at home and us trying to make the US a better country, as it should be. So excited to see how those conversations come together tonight.
Yes, thank you, Adrian. Jamala, would you like to maybe just give an opening thought?
My name is Jamala Rogers. I'm here in St. Louis, in the Midwest, and I'm happy to be here mainly because I always like the opportunity to love the opportunity to talk about Dr. King's legacy, because no matter what the political spectrum you are, everybody wants to claim a piece of Dr. King. But if we were really living the legacy, we wouldn't be in the place that we are now. And so I'm anxious and happy to talk about that later. But I really appreciate the invitation, and especially by my comrade Michael McPherson, because we've done some deeds here in St. Louis when he was here about reclaiming the legacy. So happy to talk about that always.
Outstanding. Thank you for being here. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to ask just a bit of a technical piece in order to help with sound quality and video quality. We are streaming tonight's show from Zoom. So if you're on here on Zoom with us, please feel free to use the chat, interact, share vibrations. If you're on Facebook, go ahead and click share it to your personal page, share it to your organization pages, where you know that folks are organizing, because today is just a good day to be in community with folks who are working our muscles towards peace. So again, excited that you all are here with us this evening. What I would like to do at this moment is really just ask our panelists to temporarily turn off your video. And what we're going to do now is watch the opening remarks from Reverend Yearwood, who is just a phenomenal speaker and comrade in this movement. And we will hear his words. And after this short video, we will come back together and get through what is really a dynamic show, which includes reflections from the panelists here this evening, and also music for us to be able to just, you know, reflect and also have some good mood as we have you know, strong and truthful conversations. So go ahead and put yourselves on mute, and also temporarily turn off your video for the next about 13 and a half minutes. And we will come back and have a great show going forward.
Everybody, it's Rev Yearwood, president of the Hip Hop Caucus and veteran for peace. I'm always excited, and I mean always excited, to share this moment with fellow veterans, and particularly fellow veterans for peace. I'm excited for this conference and excited for the Miami chapter. Thank you for hosting and putting this forward. We are truly at a moment in time for our country. I've called it numerous times before. I've said that this is our lunch counter moment for the 21st century. And normally when I've said that, it was in regards to two things. One, either our moment for peace or fighting poverty, or our moment dealing with the issue of climate and racial injustice. And so what we know at this moment, that all of these things are combined. We know that the issue of climate justice is racial justice. And we know that the issue of poverty is directly connected to peace. And so I just wanted to come by and this talk with you about that. I wanted to obviously on this Dr. Martin Luther King celebration, I wanted to lift up and talk about one of the things that he discussed. And he said this. He says that in the nonviolent army, there is room for everyone who wants to join. There is no color distinction. There is no examinations, and there are no pledges. Nonviolent soldiers are called upon to examine their greatest weapons, their heart, their conscience, their courage, and their sense of justice. Their heart, their courage, their conscience, and their sense of justice. I guess I just want to talk with you for a little bit about what it means to be a nonviolent soldier, in the words of Dr. King, what it means to be a nonviolent soldier. What we just saw recently here in our country, we saw a coup, we saw an insurrection, we saw literally folks who are in this country attempting civil war and attempting to overthrow our government. Many of you were shocked for a number of reasons. There were so many different things. We were shocked by the behavior of this president. We were shocked by the behavior of many of those who are in Congress. We were shocked by cabinet officials. We were shocked by fellow Americans. We were shocked by the police on Capitol Hill. We were shocked by the response. We're shocked by the lack of response. We're shocked by the censorship. We're shocked by what the censorship means for everyone. We're just shocked and should be shocked because of what we saw was egregious and horrific. And people lost their lives. People who lost their lives who were on the police, who were in some cases defending the Capitol, who lost their lives, who came there to create insurrection and riot. The one thing that I realized, though, and I think about nonviolence a lot, the one that I have not been lifted up is the tone of nonviolence. I've actually looked around for many of the statements that have come out of that, many people who were obviously disgusted and putting out statements from organizations saying what they felt about that moment. The one word, actually, that you don't see too often is nonviolent. You see the denouncing of violence. You see the denouncing of literally the coup itself. You see the denouncing of the behavior of many of the folks involved, but you don't see the word just nonviolent. A radical thought for you here in our conference is the fact that what would have happened actually if those folks understood the power of what it means to be about peace, the power of what it means to be nonviolent. This is a radical thought. We know the mentality of those who were there. We know the mentality of those who gathered. But what would have happened if those people would have showed up and Trump would have then told them, we are going to be peaceful. Whatever you do, we're going to be peaceful. And then they would have marched to the Capitol and then either knelt down or held hands, would have been in peace. How different would that day have been? How different would we even be thinking about what they had gone through? Not saying some of the ludicrous statements of the election being rigged or not being authentic, but I'm saying the issue of how different would we be responding to their actions. Violence took away all the legitimate concerns, every ounce of it at that moment. And we as Veterans for Peace understand that. We understand that violence takes away every kernel of anything being legitimate. And the issue of being nonviolent is exactly what we have to be. In the words of Dr. King, the weapons of the nonviolent soldier are the weapons of our heart, our conscience, our courage, and our sense of justice. Those are the weapons, not in our zip ties, not in handguns or mace, not in anything of strength, but the weapons are our conscience, our heart, our courage, and our sense of justice. That's why we need moving forward for Veterans in Peace and for all of us, nonviolent soldiers fighting for humanity. Now, let me take a little minute on that topic, because one of the realities right now is that we are not only fighting for equality, but we're fighting for existence. We're at a moment right now when we have to fight for our children and our children's children. We're at a moment now where so many different things are happening. We're seeing police brutality for communities of color. We're seeing the pandemic and COVID-19. We're even having this conversation because in a virtual reality, because of that. Issues of peace, we're still seeing wars and our military still being bloated. And we're still seeing poverty. And we're still seeing a situation where we're spending more money on wars than we are on programs, as Dr. King said, of social uplift. We are facing not only equality, we are facing the issue of extinction. That's where we are. That's this moment. And that's why this is not a time to play around. This is not a time for us to be caught up in just the paralysis of analysis. This is a time when we have to move to action. We have to organize and mobilize and energize our people like we've never done it before. And we must do it in nonviolent ways. We must promote peace at a time when violence is all around us. And we must do it in a way where we must come together. One of the shocking things that I've seen is sometimes we have allowed for our hue even to get us away from our mission and our goal of peace. We have sometimes forgotten that we are all brothers and sisters in this movement. Black, brown, red, male, female, straight, gay, theist, atheist, humans, all fighting for peace. And sometimes we even forget sometimes our role. Sometimes as our men can be very patriarchal, and we sometimes forget to lift up the voices of our amazing women and in this movement, to allow them to lead and lead in a way in which we need to hear their voice. We've allowed for so many things for us to not allow for those to not allow the other to be engaged. And when we saw things, what we saw, for instance, on the Capitol, we allow for that moment to be a situation where many of us fell back. When the obvious situation of race being looked upon and those being able to walk through the Capitol, we know that if those had been the other and people of a different hue, or to be honest, just straight up Black, brown, and indigenous people, that would not have happened. And we must speak to that as well. We must connect the dots. We cannot be a siloed progressive movement. We must break down the silos within our own movement and make sure that we're speaking out about those things as well. We cannot just speak about peace and not justice. And so I just wanted to say a few more things and then let you go and have an amazing conference. The first thing that's important here is that we have to lift up peace. And that has to continue to be our way. Nonviolent soldiers in a movement fighting for humanity. That's our first thing. Second, we must break down the silos that allow us to be in different buckets. We must break down the silos of this group over here or that group over there. We must break down those silos. We cannot win, as I said, as a siloed progressive movement. And the last thing I just want to say, we must lift up humanity. The wars that are going on across the globe, the hurt that is happening, the past hurt that is going on, those who we've hurt in the continent of Africa, those we've hurt in parts of Asia, Vietnam, Korea, throughout the globe, Central, South America. We must invite them into our conversations. This is the time. There's no more excuse. There should be no bills in regards to flight costs or hotel costs. We had to just put them on a Zoom and we can make it happen. We must break it down now for humanity. That's where we are right now. We must be nonviolent soldiers. And we must invite the world to be with us, or we will lose the world. Thank you so much, Bridges for Peace. Continue to be this an amazing organization. Continue to just deal with the fact that you were trained for the military, but now you're using that training for peace. God knows we need you. All power to the people.
Powerful. We'll just let that percolate for a few seconds. Just kind of take that all in. And then I'm excited about our next step. So let's take a few moments to just soak in what we just heard. And so again, thank you all for being with us this evening. I really want to, Miles, thank you for the artistry and creativity that you bring to this space, and also centering us before we got started. Like, please, the floor is yours, Miles. Like, let's get into some art.
Peace and plenty, family world. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for taking this journey beyond the dream, beyond the speech, beyond the idea of a single faceted man. The man that we're here to talk about, the legacy that we're here to talk about is so multifaceted. The music that we have tonight, the woman that's coming up first, or the person that's coming up, the individual, the being that's coming up, they are known as Brittany Chantel, 2 8-letter words. So you could look up the website yourself. We can put it into the chat as well. It's BRITTNEYCHANTELE.com. And I came across them when I was building the concert for Chicago's convention, and very humbly submitted some poetry to me, and listened to the entire poetry album, ate it. It was good food. And then went and discovered the rap album and invited them on to be to share with us. So tonight we have music that is going to cross the spectrum of topics that we could talk about. And we're starting with Brittany Chantel's song Black Lives Matter to bring us into this idea of one of the facets of this beautiful person, this legacy that we're here to share tonight. So please enjoy Black Lives Matter.
Who I used to wanna be a cop. Never smoked pot, thought that it would kill my shot. And now I'm seeing all these flowers when I'm rolling round the block. Nightmares of my family friends lying down in chalk. Had to switch my plans, I don't wanna be a cop. I don't wanna wear a vest or a badge or a Glock. I don't wanna be sorted with that sickness, acquitted, never convicted. The system makes the murderer a fucking victim. Ooh, so you scared for your safety now. Then don't take the badge, don't accept it. So you're scared for your safety now. Don't take the badge, don't accept it now. Yes, we have to act, this ain't time for small talk. Parents teach the kids, never hang out in a flock. And damn sure never cross the street without the crosswalk. Never wanna see my own mom's widow's walk. And I'm just stating the obvious for those who are not blind and redivided. I've decided to take the evidence provided. Police misguided, juries divided, and white supremacy unwinding. So we marching with Black Lives Matter, reciting. I'm singing Black Lives Matter now. Yeah, I'm singing Black Lives Matter now. Yeah, I'm singing Black Lives Matter now. I'm singing Black Lives Matter now. Hands behind your head, you will be brought in alive, not dead. Get down on your knees, hands behind your head, you will be brought in alive, not dead. Black on black crime, I wanna hear it out your mouth. This that police brutality shit I'm talking about. Black on black crime, I wanna hear it out your mouth.
Say word, give it up, give it up. Much love wherever you at. I hope you vibe with that. I'll pass that on to you, Natasha. Much love, y'all.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about Brittany. Like, I know you and Brittany have you all just being like the musicology of VFP. Talk to me a little bit about what you know about Brittany, and like really how that it's like that muscle that we've been talking about we want to use to be actively engaged in our community and use our skills, quite honestly, for the greater good, for peace. Talk to me about that, Miles.
So Brittany's really powerful. Comes from a biracial background, family, and really takes that in to their person. You know, like really owns that they are multiracial. And clearly in this country, one drop makes you black. You know what I'm saying? Makes you seen as the one drop rule, right? Whatever that is. So light presenting, you know, with blonde hair and light eyes, she is they are still seen as a person of color and still uh marginalized. So feels, and you can feel that essence in the song, coming out of Philadelphia, organizing heavily in Philly, very grassroots movement oriented, and an active resistor to the military industrial complex. So has worked intelligently to get out with an honorable discharge, to my knowledge, while saying that they're, you know, unhappy in the service, and had a tough time in the service. I won't tell the story, but you know, was not, saw the illusion for what it was disillusioned, became disillusioned in the military, and speaks about it at such a young age. Just really powerful and empowering. And I've just been taken, you know what I'm saying? So I share the music when I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Miles. That's really good to hear. We'll have to have Brittany back on. Um, her work out in Pittsburgh, between Pittsburgh and the DMV. I've seen the work that they do, and I don't even know if this is politically correct to say, but they have a channel called the Tampon Chronicles. And so instead of a microphone, they are holding a tampon as a direct reporter from. Talk to me
Yeah.
a little bit about that.
I saw a couple of clips. I didn't even think to bring it up just now. Went out to a Trump rally, and was the same. I forget the guy's name who does the Daily Show but interviews people. They were doing the same thing, asking Trump supporters questions with a tampon like it was a microphone and getting it on camera. Just absolutely hilarious, and deadpan with the comedy too. So like a really good actor, very photogenic, just a beautiful spirit, out for the right things and doing it the right way. You know what I'm saying? That's what I think.
And a co-creator of StandDown.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
because, they got too busy to be able to, went to in like the lab, as y'all creatives say, and got too busy for us, but was really an early mind around what StandDown should be,
Yes.
and how we should continuously ground ourselves in the work, in the message that we're putting out, because the people are having a conscious awakening.
and
So
and and a person and on that journey themselves
yeah,
actively, recently went on or is just trying to go on an ayahuasca journey. So you know, self-discovery, introspection is, if you haven't done it, if you haven't spent time going inside yourself, then you're wasting time with us, because we can't teach you anything. You got to get inside to get outside.
thank you. So up next, I'm really excited for this moment in the agenda. I've been looking forward to it for the better part of this week, is to really hear from Jamala Rogers, who spent her childhood growing up in a working class neighborhood with her 4 siblings in Kansas City, Missouri. She came of political and cultural age during the tumultuous 60s and became active in the Black student movement. She's been organizing and raising hell ever since. Currently resides in St. Louis, Missouri, where she devoted all of her adult life to creating a child-centered, family-oriented community, one that embraces, celebrates, and protects human rights of all citizens, regardless of their race, ethnicity, class, gender, orientation, or religion. Because of the persistent barriers to this goal, it is naturally led her to become a leader in the struggle for justice, equality, and peace through her words, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. It is so good to have you on with us this evening. The floor is yours.
Again, thank you for having me, and thank you to the StandDown family out there that's listening, and really looking forward to a conversation. I'm going to start by saying that, that 22-year-old Amanda Gorman was just so powerful at the inauguration. And there were many lines that stuck out for me, but the one that really stuck out is, "We have learned that quiet isn't always peace." I'm going to say that again. Quiet is not always peace. And I say that because sometimes people think when there's nothing happening that this is all good. But when nothing's happening, that's the time to be concerned. And when people start talking about nonviolence, I hardly think they're talking about it in the way that Dr. King talks about it, or what he meant, or how he lived his life. And so I've been always one to put the mirror in front of people, especially when it comes to Dr. King, because we want to remember the dreamer. But, this man was a radical to his core. He was anti-capitalist. He was, because he, fought hard against poverty. He was anti-military. I mean, a lot of what you see around radical politics, that's what King was. So this whole thing about he's dreaming and he's for a better life, no, he was fighting for that. And so you can't just talk about it and not walk it. And so every time the Dr. King holiday comes around, I get filled with a bit of anger because for St. Louisans, we have a major march. In fact, I'm told that ours is the second largest march in the country outside of Atlanta. So it's pretty big. But we have a habit of, at the old courthouse where slaves were actually sold, is where we have this. Now that's symbolic, and I think that's appropriate. We need to start there. But we always bring these dignitaries, including the mayor of the city of St. Louis and other people, to be a part of that celebration. Well, for the last, I would say, and Michael can correct me if I'm wrong, but at least the last 6 years, we've been booing the folks that they bring up there. Because you cannot bring somebody who's been anti every damn thing that Dr. King was about and think that you get a platform. No. So one mayor, we just booed him so loud, we drowned him out. That made national news, but we've been doing it ever since because apparently the Black folks who are inviting them don't understand the King legacy either. The King legacy is going to be codified in policies that support human rights. And if mayors are not doing that, if state reps are not doing that, if Congress people are not doing that, they don't get a platform to get a King award. No. That's just bastardizing the whole legacy of Dr. King. So those of us who say we for King, and we have to not only uplift his legacy and live it, we actually have to protect it as well, because it's actually being revised so that he's not as powerful of the person that we know him to be. And so for the last couple of years, I've been watching the Trump show and dance, and it's appalling to all of us. But what does that really mean, first of all, that he got elected president. So, you know, you really have to do some analytical stuff here. So, you know, I write a lot, and this is something I've really been writing about, is the role of white people in the rise of a Trump. And I'm a big, almost obsessive about Nazism and Hitlerism, and understanding, really truly trying to understand, how could that happen? And how could that happen? It goes back to what Dr. King said about the appalling silence of good people. That's why I keep going back to Amanda Gorman's work. Quiet is not always peace. There are folks who see this stuff happening and have not done what they're supposed to do. So I've been giving white people assignments when I'm writing. You know, sometimes they say, we didn't know this was going on. This is what, please tell us what we should be doing. The fact of the matter is, we know that there were 70 million people who voted for Donald Trump last time. This last time. We have to then, we know where they stand, but what about the other 70 million or so who may not have voted for him, but who have watched him flaunt, you know, violations, both morally, ethically, legally. He's just trashed everything while he's been in that White House. The burden has fallen on Black and brown people and other people of color. So, you know, it was such a metaphor when those folks stormed those races, stormed the Congress on January 6th, trashed it, carried out stuff that they didn't belong to them. And who had to clean up the mess? It was basically Black workers, Black maintenance people who cleaned up the mess. That was such a metaphor for me, cleaning up the mess of white America. So I've really been, you know, adamant, and Michael knows that I'm very much a part of building multiracial unity, but it's got to be based on some real principles. And what I've been telling white people, because now to me, this is their moment to rise and shine, is you need to figure out how to talk to that 70 million people. Those are not going to be people that's going to be at Mal's dinner table or Michael's dinner table. And if they are, they're going to be agitated. You know, they're going to get some agitation about what their role is and what they need to be doing. But all too often, we've been seeing that some of our anti-racist white people are talking to each other. And that's a safe place to do that. But there's a whole nother universe of people out there that we have to move. We have to get them out of just being spectators and being silent. That's not going to help us build the kind of anti-racist movement that we're trying to build, a multiracial movement, and it's certainly not going to aid the building of a true democracy. So I've been saying, okay, one of the things that white people need to do is, first of all, challenge and check each other. That's fine, those are words, but they also have to be about hitting back at some of the institutional racism that exists and dismantling some of that. And the reason that's important, because those are things that we can actually see. Those are measurable. So if I talk to a white person and tell them they should be doing that and other, nobody knows that I did that. But if I say your task for the next 4 years is to abolish the Electoral College, white people take the lead in that, we're going to be able to measure that, because what's going to happen? We won't have an Electoral College. We're going to be able to measure that. So talking is fine, listening to music is fine, fellowshipping is fine, but we need to be strategizing around these pillars of racism that can create and maintain a Donald Trump. That didn't come from just a handful of people. There were legions of people that helped prop him up. And that's the scary part, because those people are all around us. These are the people that have Black Lives Matter signs in their yard. And I admit in some places that takes courage to do that, but it's got to be more than the symbolism. We have to really begin to hold each other accountable for what we've created. So being here, for example, in 2014, when Ferguson went up in flames because of the Mike Brown shooting, And most of Ferguson said, we didn't know that folks were being exploited like this on the streets with all these tickets and cash, cash bail. And we didn't know that. Well, how did you not know that almost 1/3 of your general revenue is on the backs of Black people? Something's wrong with that picture. So we can't give a pass to even the well-intentioned white people. So my thing for Dr. King Day and the rest of the year is challenging white people about privilege and power and not having the burden of cleaning up this mess on Black and brown people. And we can do that diplomatically, we can do it lovingly, but we have to do it. And so when I think about disparities, for example, in health, in education, those are institutions that, people can see if there's been some changes. We've been talking about disparities in health for like 40 or 50 years. In St. Louis, we have a medical industrial complex like no other, so why are people still unhealthy here? So I'm saying there's some measurable ways that we can take on this task. And instead of Black people being in the lead, we're gonna let white people be in the lead and we're gonna assist them. So I'm gonna end by saying and reminding people again that silence, being quiet, is not always mean peace, and that silence can be just as deadly as some of the actions that people have taken. Words and policies can be deadly. And so really, I think the January 6th happening, the fact that Dr. King, we're talking about his legacy, ought to be some impetus for us to really do something different going forward. Nobody wants to have a repeat of what we saw. But just because they weren't there a couple of days ago doesn't mean they disappeared. So what are we going to do? What's going to be the challenge going forward? And so that's where I would like my challenge to be to the audience. It's like, how are we going to make this better for all people? Because at this point, Black folks definitely feel like they're under siege, and white people are saying we didn't know. Those two are not going to go together, because after a while, Black folks is going to stop seeing white people as allies. Because you got to be doing something. And if you got my back, you say you got my back, then you got to have my back. So I really am interested in the rest of the panel, but also some of the listeners to hear what's going on where they are and how they build in solidarity above and beyond what we've seen here. Because for the most part, it's been fairly shallow. But I think we've seen what happens when good people stand down. It's not good for the rest of us. So let's move forward in a very proactive, radical way, as King would have loved for us to do. Thank you.
Oh, Jamala, thank you for your words, your wisdom. On point. Let's let this percolate and marinate, as the young people say, for a moment. Yeah, you brought the truth. Thank you for sharing. And after a moment, a few seconds, Miles, please come in and share some more of your art as a part of this dynamic movement space.
I am moved. I am moved. I am touched. Jamala, thank you so much. I invite you to be a guest on StandDown. I want you to get on there and tell people to stand up as well. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. So like intersectionality, what I take away, my takeaway from that is we can't, to go back to not focusing on one aspect of King and the legacy, and really attacking this system and addressing the wanton ignorance, people saying they don't know. The song I'm gonna do right now is Nuchi Du Takara, which means all life is precious, which means this is this shirt is from VFP Rock, Veterans for Peace, the Okinawa chapter. And this is the intersection of not knowing that the military bases in Okinawa and Hawaii and Guam are oppressing the people of the South Asian Peninsula and the Pacific Islands, and really the world, with over 800 bases around the world, and oppressing the people of America by gutting the American budget and overinflating the military and creating this imperial army. So this song is Nuchi Du Takara, and this is for the Okinawan resistance, calling for the US bases to be shut down. And yes. And you can, I'm sure you can hear my family upstairs. We have 2 kids, and our nanny has 2 kids. So we have a full house. We have a very non-traditional house, and it's beautiful and it works. And there's music playing, and so you might hear it come in over this song, but that's the way it's gonna be.
We who stand against the oppressors.
Cool.
We are the dreamers. We are the resistance. From Naha to Nago, from Takai to Hanoko Bay.
Long before America was born, it became the nation. Dated by more than 400 years of imperialist Japanese annexation. The U.S. adventurers came to fight until this island was taken. In the Battle of Okinawa, away from the country of the rising sun. Now busting big guns is still done. Only make civilians anxious. This situation simply one of ethnic oppression. Let's just face it. For the 7 generations coming, their views and imagination, and all the lives are necessarily taken, opposing these occupations. Say, Nuchi Takara, Nuchi Takara, no Fatema, no Gobe, Nuchi Takara, Nuchi Takara, any means you measure. Now it's all together. Nuchi Takara, Nuchi Takara, all life is a treasure. All life is precious. Nuchi Takara, Nuchi Takara, down forever. Shut these bases down forever. See, it's a matter of human rights over humiliation. And daily demonstrations, colorful cloth placements, the power and peace represented in the perseverance, the pushback against the rampant militarization. From the northern training area down past campaigns, noise and harassment, Ospreys crash, illegal land grabs, an American embarrassment, like the 12-year-old rape in 9/5 with no answer. Nuchi Takara, Nuchi Takara, no new Fatema, no Gobe, Nuchi Takara, any means you measure. Now it's all together. Nuchi Takara, Nuchi Takara, all life is a treasure. All life is precious. Nuchi Takara, Nuchi Takara, down forever. Shut these bases down forever. I was stationed on Camp Swab in 9/5. I remember our presence invaded a normal life. On the island, Marines relaxed by fucking wildin'. Drinking and fighting was our way of socializing. Now I work at vocalizing the way I feel properly. Now that I am no longer government property. I hope and pray it's not impolite of me to say this. I'm truly sorry for my service. Meant our freedom's waited. Nuchi Takara, Nuchi Takara, no new Fatema, no Gobe, Nuchi Takara, Nuchi Takara, any means you measure. Now it's all together. Nuchi Takara, Nuchi Takara, all life is a treasure. All life is precious.
Nucci, Nucci, shut up, down forever. Personally based forever. Nucci, Nucci, no new Fatima, no babies. Nucci, Nucci, any means you measure. Get down with us again. Nucci, we are apolitical. All life is a treasure. Let's say all life is precious. Nucci, Nucci,
for our family. We gotta do the thing that's morally right and morally correct.
That's what Dr. King would say, and that's what he believes. The civil rights movement was a peaceful movement from his end because it was the morally right thing to do, not only because it was the physically feasible thing to do. You know what I'm saying? So peace and love, y'all, and get your knowledge on, like Jamala said. Thank you, sister. Thank you, Queen Sister.
Yes. Thank you, Miles, again for sharing your talent with us, your music with us. To have talent in the movement is a gift. So straight up, like, thank you for all of that. So, gleaning from what you just said, Dr. King, for many of us, was introduced to us depending on your age range, right? So we have a real good conversation of generations happening here this evening. But depending on what you were taught in your school system, depending on what your understanding of things are now, I think what you land on, which type of Dr. King is positive. And I think that is where I think there's health in having differences of opinion. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I love being at tables with people who think bigger than me, who help me to understand things that I didn't when I read the same script that they did. But for life experience, they have a different understanding of things. I was the little girl who always sat on the porch and listened to the elders whenever I could, because I understood their knowledge of things to be much, much deeper. And that was just something that was just in me. So, and that goes with music. Music has always been just a vibration. And so this movement is stronger because I think we have different vantage points and different on ramps and different perspectives of what Dr. King means to us. So I'm just so happy. Not even just happy. Happy isn't really the word. I don't know. I'll keep it simple. Greatly looking forward to this conversation that we're going to have. Dr. King is often, listen, all of the books that you'll readily find in your local library or in your classroom settings told you about the I Have a Dream, Dr. King. Many of us who have had a conscious awakening understand Dr. King to be the person who had a dream and then woke up, right? And so I'll argue that as I sit here in the great city of Chicago, that this was the only city that Dr. King had lived outside of the South. And I'll argue that after his experiences here, that we began to see a different Martin Luther King. And so if you haven't already done so, it's comfortable to know about the I Have a Dream, Dr. King. But I'll echo his family's sentiment this week that said, get to know him on a deeper level. So I'm excited that we're having this roundtable discussion to be able to peel back, that was so much deep to his story that we don't often talk about. And so whether that be beyond Vietnam, as peace veterans and peace activists, that we kind of reclaim what Dr. King was. There's a meme that I saw on Twitter, Black Twitter, that said, there's a difference between Twitter and Black Twitter. Don't know if y'all know that. But on Black Twitter, that said Dr. King wasn't assassinated for the peace and civil rights, and having a dream. That Dr. King was assassinated because he woke up. And he began to actively say things, and I'll quote, like, the dream has become a nightmare. He said that. He talked about, again, as I sit here on the south side of Chicago, struggling with how far has our city, um, regressed since, my time in the military, and I come back home, and I'm just observing things. And he talks about how war has a direct connection with the people's consciousness of the war that's going on in their own cities. So when I came back, and I was like, wow, they call this Chirac. That's offensive. We're not going there. But when I see that the front page of the newspaper often drives the narrative, and Dr. King talks about, but somehow in the bifold of that same newspaper, it's a much deeper and local story that we oftentimes miss. So just kind of leading with that, I would love for us to kind of go around. Those are just, some of my thoughts that I think about Dr. King. And I tell folks, like, if you don't know, there's actually literature out there. The Radical King by the thoughtful Dr. Cornell West is great education around just, getting to know King beyond what you might have been told and what you might have even understood up until this point. The national movement for understanding is shifting. And I think this is an opportunity window for us to be smarter, wiser, and share sharper things throughout our community. So I've said enough there. I just wanted to, serve a layup. Is it serve a layup or throw a layup to the dynamic panel, who I consider movement family? Share some of your thoughts around the Radical King, the King beyond what you knew as a young person. And I'll start with Adrian, who we haven't really heard from yet.
Thank you. So, I've been thinking about this a lot over the past week. What I was taught in school growing up, that this time of year we might be asked to write a paragraph about who Dr. King was and what he did. And oftentimes, as many of our history books throughout our elementary and high school education are completely sanitized, this bit of history is completely sanitized as well. I still think about that a lot. I absolutely love history. I ended up taking so many history courses in college that I just decided to get a major in it because I had just taken so many classes. I just absolutely love it. And it has only been since really getting involved in the peace movement that I realized that there's a whole other deeper layer of history that I just never knew existed before. And I think about that because when people are saying, they say that you should tell stories from an objective point of view. And, or at least, when I was in college, people would say, we would get upset with professors who told history through their own lens and their biases and their from a subjective point of view. And we're like, surely there's a clean version of history that exists out there, where we just get to know what happened and who said what, and not realizing that everything in life is subjective, that we all take our own lived experiences and it filters how we see history and what meaning it has for us. But I don't know. I know that in 2005, when I really started questioning I didn't really agree with anything our military did after 9/11. I thought it was a great opportunity for us to wake up and think about how we treat the world and how we treat even each other, and maybe do things differently. But, I was in the military. I did what I was told to do. I was silent in that way, and I went along with the crowd. And it was only after I got out of the military in 2003, 2004 that I started reading and discovering that there was not only a whole deeper history out there, but there was a whole other community out there of people who saw that the world was not what it should be or not what it could be, and that it could be better, and that they were committed to doing something about it. And I guess that is going all the way back to what we're taught about King in the history in elementary school. It was always a part of the past. It was something that was done and over. And that racism is over. We live in a better world now. We don't have separate drinking fountains. We don't have separate bathrooms. We don't have different places on the bus to sit. That all those different pieces are just, we've come such a long way, and yet we haven't really come anywhere near as far as we could and should. So I guess that's what I think about a lot. I know a lot of us watched that video that's on YouTube where I think Miles, you shared it with the group earlier, where Dr. King was reflecting and saying, reflecting on his speech, I Have a Dream, and saying that the dream has changed for him and how he views it. And it is becoming, nightmare. And I even think about that with people getting into activism or becoming aware of what's going on in the world that needs to be addressed. And it's like, you have this idea of what needs to change or what needs to be better, but then you peel back the layers and you realize that it's so much deeper than you really thought it was at first. And it takes commitment and that willingness to learn and the willingness to think about things differently. And that's what this panel is all about. So I think I will leave it there for others to reflect and see how we take this conversation forward.
I was living in Houston, Texas when Dr. King was assassinated, and I was in the process of being drafted, and my mind was totally turned toward Vietnam and how could I possibly escape getting out of the military. In our neighborhood, at one of our major intersections, there was a huge billboard put up that showed Dr. King sitting in a classroom, and the caption was, "He's in the process of studying communism to bring to this country." And I remember going home and telling my mother about that, and she said to me, "Boy, who do you think put that billboard up?" And I had to stop and think for a second, and I went, "Gee, I don't know." She goes, "Well, you better start paying more attention to what's going on around here. That man is trying to help you and the rest of us out." So I think the reason Dr. King was assassinated, I came to this conclusion, the reason he was assassinated, and so the reason why Malcolm was assassinated was because they started talking about unifying the people. When you start talking about bringing the masses together, the government, the mafia, the capitalists, they all start paying attention to you because they know you're about to upset their world. So I read a lot about Malcolm. I read a lot about Dr. King, and the speech he did about Vietnam at that church, it touched me so. I actually didn't know what to do with myself. So while I was in Vietnam, my job was a military policeman. And as a military policeman, I was trained to observe. And the one thing that I observed while I was there was that we were on the wrong side of this. These people had nothing, most of them. When we went through these little villages, they had their little plywood huts and made out of whatever they could possibly get their hands on. And I realized that they didn't have McDonald's. Most of them didn't even have electricity. So when I joined a group of veterans that decided that we were no longer going to participate in this, I was regulated to what they thought was an embarrassment to me. They put me in charge of the dailies. And one thing I want to say is all the Black veterans, we wore these bracelets that were made out of our shoelaces, and they were called slave bracelets. And we all took a vow of nonviolence toward, first, just Black people, period. But before I left Vietnam, I took a vow against violence against anyone, period. And after moving back to Houston, was a weird thing would happen. I would get stopped by the police and it was nigger this, nigger that, nigger this, that, and the other. But then when they called in on my license, they came back and I was Mr. Dempsey. The reason being I had numerous clearances for the work that I did in Vietnam, mostly security. And it made me realize just how many things were going on and how they used segregation to keep us separate. But I always knew that because of my parents. They, I just want a quick story. They built a school in the middle of two large neighborhoods in Houston, Texas, two large Black neighborhoods. And we were all excited because we were going to get a state-of-the-art school. And then we found out that they were going to bus white kids from all over Houston to this school. And our parents got together and told them that if their kids didn't go to that school, no one would. That school sat 3 years unoccupied. And when they finally decided that Black people could go to it, they went in, I can't believe this, they took out the central air conditioning and heating in the school. They left air conditioning in the library and the language lab. This is how hateful people are, white people are and can be. So when that thing erupted at the Capitol, I had no, I knew this was going to happen and I was so hurt and so angry. I literally didn't know what to do with myself. But keeping with this, and I have kept to this principle of nonviolence. And I joined Veterans for Peace after 2005, after I retired. And I've always been in the peace movement. From the day I got out of the service, I was totally devoted to peace. I tried to tell my story to anyone that would listen, tried to get them to understand what was going on in Vietnam and the road that this country had headed down, that had been actually the road that this country had been on and had not detoured, not one iota. So being here right now and listening to all of this is great. I'm in my 70s, folks, and I've been putting up with this as a woman told me one day, life is too long to have to put up with this shit. And I told her, you mean life is too short? And she told me, young man, I am 82 years old and I have been dealing with this my entire life. So that's my the motto that I use now. Life is too long to have to put up with this. This has to stop, and it has to stop now. And we have to do everything that we can to stop it. And along with you, Jamala, I challenge everyone, not only my white friends and mixed races, I challenge everyone to step up and say, when you see something, say something. Silence is approval and acceptance. So we have to be vocal, we have to be loud. We have to be really loud. So that's the principle I operate on. And I'm going to leave it at that. I might get a little carried away with myself here.
Okay, so it was on my mic. Okay, thank you, Michael. Boy, there's a lot to talk about. First thing, I want to thank Jamal. I want to thank everybody on the panel, but I especially want to thank Jamala for being here. She is a mentor for me. I've known her first. I mean, she's been in my life quite a while now. And the first night I met my wife, Deborah, actually, I didn't even meet her. The first time I saw her was at an event. Jamala was there as well. So it's been quite some time. She's known me for a while, and I've learned a lot from her and greatly appreciate her. I do want to first try to address some things with King, and I want to talk about a little bit of what Jamala talked about and Reverend Yearwood, because they said some things that I want to comment on. So we decided to have this event on the 22nd because it is the day the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons has come into effect. So I just want to remind everybody about that. Looks like Michael wants to say something else in relationship to that. So hopefully you can get a chance to do that. But I want people to know that Dr. King has spoke out against nuclear weapons as early as we can find anyway, probably before that, because he must have been thinking about it. And also his wife, from things that I've read, kind of pushed him on this issue, Coretta. So he spoke out at least as early as 1957. And he said this was on the Ebony magazine, and some people might not know this, but he actually had a column in Ebony magazine for about a year. In this, what he wrote is, I definitely feel that the development and use of nuclear weapons of war should be banned. It cannot be disputed that a full-scale nuclear war would be utterly catastrophic. Hundreds of millions of people would be killed outright by the blast and heat and by the ionizing radiation produced at the instant of the explosion. So one thing I want you all to think about, because when we think about Dr. King, I think we think of him as kind of ageless. We don't think about how old he actually was or how young he actually was. We just kind of have like this picture of him, and he's just a wise man, and he could be 70 or he could be 100 or he could be 30. When he said that, he was 28 years old. Okay, so he was thinking about these things before then, because he didn't just all of a sudden that day come up with that. Now, this is important, and I want to remind people Fred Hampton was 21. Now, I say that because intergenerational leadership is really important. And I think Veterans for Peace and the peace movement in general has a problem with that. And we need to really look at that because while obviously someone like Fred Hampton and King are special, they're not so special that other young people also don't have ideas and leadership that we need to bring to the forefront. And remember, intergenerational, see, it's kind of hard to say because it's hard to do. It's not one or the other, it's both, right? I learn from young people. They learn from us. Me as I'm turning into an old guy. So I know some people don't like to hear old white man or old white guy. Well, I'm turning into an old black every year, old black guy. And I'm okay with that. It's not a bad word because it's what it is, right? We learn from each other. That's what intergenerational leadership means. Just to try to bring that home a little bit more, King joined SANE when he was 29. That's the National Committee for Sane Nuclear Policy. 1958 is when he joined. I think it was started in 57. He did a speech about nuclear weapons, or at least was in the speech, in a speech he did to the War Resisters League. He was 30. I was going to read those, but I'm not going to, read some comments from it, but I'm not now. I'm going to read this one. King at 31, 1961, he said, I don't think the choice is any longer between violence and nonviolence in a day when guided ballistic missiles are carving highways of death through the stratosphere. I think now it is a choice between nonviolence and non-existence. So those ballistic missiles clearly were nuclear missiles, right? He was 31 then. He gave his Nobel Peace Prize lecture when he was 35. So he's still a young man. And in that, he talked about the triple evils. His Beyond Vietnam speech, he was 38. Of course, he dies at 39 years old. So this, I think, I just really want to drive home that we need to do a better job at this intergenerational leadership, because there are pieces missing when we're not working together, right? Okay, so the next thing, real quick, I want to address something that Reverend Yearwood talked about. If the insurgency that took place on the 6th, if those people had surrounded the White House and been nonviolent. And of course, he said, not thinking about all the reasons they did and all, none of that, but just what if their action had been a nonviolent action? What I want you all to think about is, at least this is true for me. If Trump had won the election, and from my perspective, the only way he could have won it would have been electoral, right? And it would have been, I believe, it would have been voter suppression. Okay. I knew that I was going to have to up what my resistance was going to be to this administration if it had been a Trump administration right now. Trump, for me, is an existential threat to me as a Black person. I mean, so by that, I mean, we were going to see a new level of repression against all of us, but in particular, Black people, people of color. So that meant I had to do something different. So I imagine, because I had been thinking about this, it wasn't like, you know, I was waiting, I was thinking, what was I going to do? I imagined that tens of thousands of people were going to actually go and surround the White House. Like, no, we are not going to accept you. I really imagined that. But I knew that we were going to be peaceful. So I imagined that we would be surrounding the White House. So I'm imagining that a bunch of people watching this right now and listening to this right now, we'd all be there right now, right? Trying to figure out logistics about food, you know, tents, you know, water, all that. But now we also know that there would have been a backlash from these people who attacked the Capitol, right? They might have come to attack us. Plus, Trump would have still been in charge, so we would have been dealing with the power of the state, right? That's what we would have been dealing with. So the reason I bring this up is because one of the things that Dr. King was really important to him is love. That was the centerpiece of how he moved forward, I think personally, but also obviously in the struggle for Black liberation. And over time, when you looked at the triple evils, how he's going to approach that, right? And one of the things that's important when you are trying to practice love with people, and the thing is, love means loving your enemies, because it's easy to love people you get along with, right? So loving your enemies, you have to have some empathy for them. So I don't know if y'all remember Timothy McVeigh when he blew up the Arthur P. Murrow building, I think is the name of it. I remember, and he was a Gulf War vet like me, right? So I'm thinking when it happened, I tried to put myself in his head to try to understand why he did that. And I knew that he had some level of disillusionment with the government. He was upset. He was upset about Ruby Ridge. He was upset about Waco. I was upset about those two things because I didn't see it right the way the government did that. Just like I didn't see it right what the government did to the move. It's a very similar thing. Now, a lot of white people couldn't see that was the same thing. You know, like Timothy McVeigh didn't think about what happened in Philly. He was just thinking about a certain group of people, but I was thinking about all people. So I understood where he was coming from. It was the wrong way to go about it. So I guess I'm saying that to specifically, Adrian, and we talked a little bit about this before the call. Those people and some of the veterans that were in that insurrection, they were disillusioned. And something filled up some of that disillusionment. And it was Trump, all that propaganda. So here they end up showing up at that Capitol building. Now, what's important for us as Veterans for Peace is that we need to be engaging. And I'm really speaking to the white people on here when I say this, because I really don't want to go talk to them. To be honest with you, I will. But some other people who are closer to them, who they will listen to, need to open some doors. If you want me to go with you, I'll talk to them. I'm not going out there by myself. We have to talk to these people, and I'm talking about these veterans, because somebody's filling their head up with stuff. So let it be us. You know, don't let people take advantage of them. We have to show them we're not trying to take advantage of you. We're here for you. You know, Now, I know there's a number of people that when you say things like that, they think you're being soft and you're talking about unity and all this kind of stuff. I want to tell you something. Loving someone does not mean that you don't call for accountability for things that person has done wrong to you. Loving someone doesn't mean that you forget when they have done something and that we need to build trust. Loving someone doesn't mean that they just get away with anything that they've done. So I'm not in any way calling for, oh, let's go hug and everything will be okay. No, because I already know it's not going to be okay because it hasn't been okay for 400 years and then all of a sudden going to be okay, right? But I'm trying to look at how do we bridge this gap? And one of the ways to bridge the gap is to have some empathy and then go out and talk to people, but not just let things be as if nothing has happened. I'm not saying that at all. And another thing is, what is the alternative? More violence, right? And that's something we don't want. So I want to read you something real quick, what Dr. King said about love. Because for King, love is not a sentimental idea. Power without love is reckless and abusive. Love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. So I also want to tell you something about justice because I want to tell you this. I want to tell you this evening that it is not enough for us to talk about love. Love is one of the pivotal points of the Christian faith. There is another side called justice. And justice is really love in calculation. Justice is love correcting that which revolts against love. So I'm trying to point out that if you're fighting and struggling for justice, that's an act of love in and of itself. And real justice is for everyone. It's not just for one person. It's not just for one group of people. And one thing I love about my people as Black people is that our struggle, not that there aren't any tendencies for separation. Of course there are. But as a people, our struggle has been for us, but it's to lift up everyone. We have never struggled as a full group just for Black people. It's been a struggle for everyone, right? And don't get me wrong, we understand that we have to struggle for us. You understand what I'm saying? We understand that, but we're not trying to push somebody else down to lift ourselves up. That's never been our formula. So I guess just kind of reflecting back on what Jamala said about giving assignments, I think we as Veterans for Peace, we actually are positioned to message and talk to some of these people that we might see as our nemesis in that movement. There's space for us. There's space for us, but particularly for the white veterans is what I'm saying. The other thing I want to, it's in the same vein. Black people, this is controversial about what I'm about to say. Everybody doesn't agree with this, of course, but Black people voted for Biden, I think, because we thought he would be the person who would be able to beat Trump. I think that's the main reason, not because most Black people are middle of the road, agree with his particular politics and all that. But we have been navigating white supremacy for a long time. And don't forget, Barack Obama probably would not have won the presidency if he hadn't won Iowa and Black people could see, oh, then white people will vote for him. Okay, we'll vote for him too then, because we wanted to vote for him anyway, but we need to make sure that the person that gets in the White House isn't going to hurt us anymore, because we're going to get hurt, but not going to hurt us any more than that other person, right? Which was the Republican, right? So we'll vote for him too. So he got in. Now, I'm not trying to say we're trying to follow white people. No, I'm saying that we have to navigate white supremacy in such a way that we can't be taking a whole bunch of gigantic chances, because we take chances every day. We take chances walking around, we just take chances being. So we can't take chances that we are afraid are going to come out in such a negative way. Trump, as I said, was an existential threat. He needed to be defeated. He needed to be defeated. So why am I telling you this? I'm saying this to you because if you want Black people to vote in a more radical way, then you need to bring more white people into the fold to vote that way. But we don't have, Black people do not have, we have influence, especially right now. We have power within the Democratic Party, but it's influence because we're a small part of the electorate. We're not the biggest part of the electorate. White people are. Okay. So who voted Trump in? White people voted Trump in. That's who voted him in. Yes, a plurality of different people voted in Biden, right? But if Black people had not voted for Biden and decided to vote for a third party, which a lot of people and progressives said, we should be voting over here for this person, then Trump would have gotten in, right? So I'm saying again, assignment, work on your people, help change your people. Stop coming to my people telling us how we should vote. We'll figure that out. We got plenty of radicals in the Black community talking to the Black community about what we need to do. We don't need you to come talk to us about that. We good. Okay. Talk to your people. They're the ones that make the difference about what's going to happen in this country. And one thing to understand too, I don't even want to hear from you about that kind of thing. There's some things that you don't need to talk to me about unless you're my friend. If you going up to Black people you don't know and telling them how they should feel about another Black person, like how they should feel about Obama or how they should feel. I had somebody try to tell me how I should feel about John Lewis. I don't even know this person. This is over Facebook. Why are you telling me this? You know, because I posted something about getting into good trouble and they didn't like it. And and here's something that's crazy. They want to send me an article from the Black Agenda report about John Lewis. I don't need you. I know the Black Agenda report, so I don't need you to send that to me. Don't do that. I'm just telling you, please don't do that unless they're your friend, because y'all can have that conversation, but because they know you. But if they're not your friend, don't do that. And it's a different conversation if I'm having with a Black person who I might disagree with about John Lewis or Barack Obama when we have that conversation, because I know that person is going to be in the street with me and they know I'm going to be in the street with them. They know that already, right? So we can have that conversation and it'll be cool because we know we're united around being Black, and we know we're united around the experience that we've had together as Black people. I don't know nothing about you. I ain't never seen you in the street with me, and you damn sure don't have the same experience that I do as a Black person. So why are you trying to tell me who I should be voting for? Don't do that. Just please, unless you're friends. So I just wanted to share that because I've been thinking about that a lot. I've had like 3 or 4 Facebook encounters with people that I cannot believe, and I'm giving them a lot of space. I'm telling them, you know, you're right about those points, but here's some other points. And they just still want to just slap me and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, my mind is blown. So don't do that. And I think there one other thing, and then I'll be quiet here. Oh man, and what Jamala said about the people cleaning up the mess after the insurgents left, and just what that means, that Black people were cleaning up after the white supremacists. And it's interesting because in many ways, and this is not to dismiss any contribution anybody has made to this country, but on a consistent basis, from my perspective, Black people have been pushing this country to be better. And yeah, in some ways it's for selfish reasons, because we getting our butt kicked all the time. And the things that we pushing people to be better on are the ones that if things were stopped, it'd be better for us. So yeah, okay, I'll give you that. There's some selfishness in that. But is not fully selfish again, because I go back to, we're not pushing anybody down, we're trying to lift everybody up. And so that vision or that image of Black people cleaning up after those white people who stormed the Capitol, that's been the Black experience in the United States of America, trying to make this country better, trying to make this country live up to its ideals in the face of constantly being diminished, constantly being dismissed, and even brainwashed, because you have to dismantle in your own self the things that you are being told about yourself. You have to dismantle that as a Black person. And women. Let me bring up patriarchy for a second, which I believe is the biggest problem. So I would think women can understand in many ways, because they're always having to dismantle what they're being told. Yeah, so I guess that's it. And I appreciate you listening to my rant.
Yo, Michael, I always appreciate listening to your rants, brother. I need to call you more often. That was really powerful and empowering. A lot to unpack there. I'm going to dive in where you, with something that you left me with, which is Trump. Trump didn't come out of, it's not an anomaly. 70 million people voted for him. And that was in response, and that was the second time, right? So the first time you have people voting for him in response to Barack Obama. You have the most hate group growth in the country during the 8 years of Barack Obama's presidency. And I'm not gonna martyr, you know what I'm saying? Like, he wasn't the greatest president by any means just because he's the first Black president. He was a wartime president. He was a war hawk like the others preceding him, and he received the Nobel Peace Prize while waging war and increasing war in Pakistan, I believe, right? Is that correct? You shaking your head no? Oh, yeah. He received the Nobel Peace Prize while waging war and increasing the drone war and dropping bombs. Yes. Yeah. It's insane. And so we come to this place where veterans, feeling disenfranchised veterans. What's up, Michael? I'm going to ask you what's up, because you're giving me signals that I don't understand. Disenfranchised veterans will identify with, poor veterans will identify with Trump and go to the Capitol to take part in an insurrection and defile the flag that they claim to care so much for, that they're out there waving with the Confederate flag, which defiles the American flag. Like the American flag that we have because the Confederacy lost. So if you're waving the two together, then you lost something along the way. Not only are you confused about the possibilities of what could happen, because you're not putting 60 million Black people into slavery in 2020, in 2021. That's not happening. So you're clearly disconnected from reality, but then you're waving two flags that you shouldn't wave together, right? Like, the American flag means that the Confederacy lost. So, and then you're using flag poles and hockey sticks to beat up police officers. When 2 months ago, you're the very same people railing against actual peaceful protesters fighting for your rights. Not just our rights, and not just the rights of Black people and women and marginalized communities and LGBTQ communities and indigenous communities, but your rights, your privileged, entitled rights, your freedoms of speech, your freedoms to carry a gun, which don't make sense when you juxtapose that with your desire to prevent a woman to choose, the right to choose. So you have really mixed up views. And like Dr. King would be perplexed to be alive in this time, to be here, you know, 50 years after his assassination, and see that a lot of people have regressed. Of vast portions of the society have regressed. You'd think that with 360 million people in the country and a powerful economy, 5% of the world's population, we'd be able to control industry in whole new ways. But we pulled solar panels off of the White House when Carter, after Carter left the White House. And I was born in 74, and there was a vacuum because the Black men who I should have been able to look up to in my community were either dead from the Vietnam War or locked up in jail because of the heroin wars that were waged in the inner city, or strung out on drugs because of the introduction of crack. So thank you for asking why we don't have our shit together when it's been actively kept. You know what I'm saying? From we've been not allowed to clean the toilets. You know what I'm saying? We got to clean your toilets. So there's somebody in the comment section asked why Dr. King's Beyond the Dream speech is not known, and that's what we're here talking about today. Why is it not talked about? Jim Bissell asks, I am wondering why one of MLK's most relevant speeches, in my opinion, regarding today's voices is hardly examined. And it's because a year after giving that speech, Jim, he was assassinated. He spoke out against the system that keeps us separated and divided, uninformed, misinformed, and misled. And because he spoke out against it, he was taken out. Just like JFK, just like Fred Hampton, just like Malcolm X. And when you see that happen to a whole swath of people who speak truth, your voice gets taken as a generation. And so, like, there's a vacuum. A vacuum was created in the Black community. And as a hip hopper, coming of age in the golden age, in the golden era of hip hop, 88, 92, 88 to 92 is the golden era of hip hop. Just go type in golden era hip hop and do some research, listen to some music. In those years, I was coming of age. I was a high school freshman in 88, graduated in 92, high school in the golden era. So I saw the division. I saw it on another level, because our leaders, our hip hop leaders, our Public Enemy, you know what I'm saying, our Chuck D and our native tongues got taken from us because the corporate powers saw that investing in a fear paradigm was more profitable. And so they invested in brothers like Eazy-E, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, and gangster rap took off and conscious rap fell to the wayside. And you have a whole generation of people now that argue whether hip hop has evolved because Lil Peep and Lil Pump and Lil Wayne can rap with stacks of money next to their head, and people with something to say are not heard from. So like Reverend Yearwood said, like Jamala said, like Michael said, give the flowers now. Let's celebrate our people who are making difference in this world while they are here. You know what I'm saying? It's incredible to have a nationwide movement for George Floyd, because we saw that Derek Chauvin put his knee on his neck for 8 minutes. But we need to have this same passion and power for our little brothers and sisters who are scared, like Michael says, who are scared that a cop is gonna put their knee on their neck. We know that a lot of cops were at the Capitol. So we know that this system is entrenched with racism and hatred for melanated people. we're all melanated for the more melanated people, right? Because our less melanated cousins are committed these crimes against us because they've been misled that we are different, right? But if you peel the skin back, we are all the same. We all need sunlight to survive, right? We can't live underground in caves. So we have to get it together. We have to live together. There has to be unity and conversation. There has to be dialogue, has to be open, it has to be diverse. If you have a president who's not willing to talk, that's a sign of a problem, you know? And if you have people who are resistant to change, that's a sign of a problem, because change is constant. We all change. So the police system has to change. The prison system has to change. Prison, I believe, should be abolished. Policing as we know it needs to be abolished. Like, just look at whatever. I'm not going to get into all that. That's my statement. I'm throwing that out there. And yeah, we need a new world. We need to like look at Star Trek and invest like that. Invest in science, technology, and research. You know what I'm saying? Invest in peace. Turn the bases. I love saying this. Take all the bases right now, drop the gates, open the doors, let the people who live around the base come in, meet the soldiers, interact with them, start learning about the community that they're occupying, and start sharing about the military knowledge that they have, and share about the transition, because investing in bombs and things that kill our environment are going to kill our planet. For us, our planet's going to live on, but humans will die. Roaches will live, rats, some other species. Humans will be gone. So we need to invest in wind farms and solar energy and geothermal energy, and turn the bases into global universities, free for all people to attend. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where I'm at. And the rest of it is just talk. So right now you have a Democrat-led Congress, a Democrat-controlled Senate. You have Democrats in office. Don't give Mitch any power, and make the right choices. And then show the people that putting Bernie as budget finance director is a good thing. That's my thing. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. The irony of privilege. The people at the Capitol were not poor people. They were middle class people. They had the means to travel to the Capitol. They had the means they had the means to travel to the Capitol. That means they didn't have to worry about childcare and all this stuff and transportation during a pandemic. You see what I'm saying? And probably super spreader event. Like, look at the gear they had on, the communications, it costs money. So with money and with privilege and entitlement, and unhappy about the country, unhappy about the state of the country, or unhappy that Black people and people of color are going to be the majority within 25 years. Let's get it straight, y'all. By loving what's crooked and embracing that, but you know, and queer and different. You know what I'm saying? Let's convict what's crooked. Let's love what's queer and different. Peace and power, y'all.
Jamala, you have the floor. You're on mute. There you
Yes, I was talking up a storm here. Y'all missed all the good stuff. So in essence, I was saying that you all brought up a number of points that I think need to be revisited beyond this show, but you know, for weeks and months to come. One of the things I think Michael McPherson helped me to think about is the number of military people who stormed the Capitol. I mean, we saw that they had military training. They were rappelling off the walls and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I'm going to add that to my assignment to white people, Michael, because I think that is a conversation that white veterans and even white active military people can have. Because was that really patriotism to storm the Capitol? I mean, really, it's a contradiction there that needs to be, you know, agitated around and educated around. And it made me think about Black people have been the real patriots from day one in spite of all that we've gone through. We very seldom are the ones that selling secrets to our enemies. We wouldn't ever storm the Capitol like that, in that way. We try to abide by the law best we can. And every day we get in our behinds kicked and beat in some form or fashion. So when you talked about, one of you all talked about just the risk that we take leaving our houses every day, and the racism that we face, both in terms of in your face racism, but the policies and the practices, all are with us every day. So to see, for example, a person like tackling a child because she thought he stole a phone. See, this is an everyday thing for us. Sometimes it gets on a damn YouTube, and sometimes it doesn't, but it's our reality. And so that's what I'm saying. This is the age of white people taking the lead against racism, institutional racism, and all the other facets of racism. But we have definitely been the true patriots trying to make this country better for not just us, but for everybody. That's always been what we're doing. And I know a lot of times I've had conversations with young people. You talked about the intergenerational dialogue. It's like, why should we be investing in this country? Why should we be doing this? We live here. We ain't going nowhere. We can't go nowhere. So we have to stay and make sure that this generation and the generations to come are going to live in a civil, humane society. That's what I'm fighting for. If I could be any place else that I thought could be that, I probably would be there. I don't know of any place that is going to welcome me and that's going to embrace me. This is the land that we came on. We weren't invited here. We didn't, visit and decide to stay. We were kidnapped. And so it is what it is. So we've been trying to make the best of this as Black folks, as people of African descent. And we are going to stay. You ain't going to move us nowhere. We ain't going nowhere. We staying here. So that's the first thing that white people need to understand. We're not going anywhere. I think it was Miles who said we ain't moving 60 million Black folks nowhere, okay? We're here to stay. One of the things last month, the Organization for Black Struggle did a screening of the first Rainbow Coalition, because as we start to look at what was happening in this country, the need for that is even greater. And so we need to be looking at, okay, what did other people do in the particular time that they were in that we can learn from? It's no doubt we need to be building a different kind of multiracial movement here. But what is that going to look like, and what is it going to take, and what new ways of thinking do even progressive have to deal with? And so I think, the rise of white supremacy during the Trump has given us a new reality. Like, this is something quite different than we've dealt before. And so maybe the old ways of, old organizing ways may not work. And so how are we going to deal with that? And so I think I'm hearing from all of you all that you're up for the challenge. Are you up for the agitation that we need to have with our white brothers and sisters, regardless of where they are on the political spectrum? But we got some work to do, y'all. And if we listen to the voice of Dr. Martin Luther King, he's going to help guide us to that place where we need to be. Sometimes it may be a place of love, but sometimes it might be a place of agitation. And the point that was pointed out about the youthfulness of these people, whether it be, Dr. King, Fred Hampton, Malcolm X, and even some of the sisters that aren't as lifted up as possible. These were ideas that they had before we even knew who they were. They were germinating. So let's not leave the young people out. Let's bring them into the table and hear what they have to say and see how all of that is a mix for us to move forward.
Wow. So that was like, job well done. Everything you just said landed. Thank you again for sharing your wisdom and just being here with us this evening for this special episode, which is going, as long as we're strong, we're going to go a little bit longer. But we also want to, just leave folks with just some final thoughts. So as we prepare to bring this Great roundtable dialogue to close. I'm curious to hear a little bit, just really your closing thoughts. Like, what's on your mind when you think about what we all kind of like came to this space around, which was not just to share like our thoughts, but also kind of focused on like a call in to action, if you will. So in a minute or half or two or less, if we can go around and just hear from each of you around what you think folks can do in this moment of COVID-19, a global health pandemic that is having a devastating effect on non-white people, particularly those who are Black and poor and underinsured or without health insurance. I'm curious to hear what some of your closing thoughts are around how to create community, to feel less alone, and from military or veteran and activism spaces, what your recommendation would be for people to, keep themselves engaged and less alone in this moment. So Michael D, Michael McP, Miles, Adrian, and then Jamala. I would love to close with you, and then we will move on through our agenda.
I think what we're doing here is a good start and needs to continue. Conversation is needed constantly. People need to constantly be reminded of what's going on and of the struggle. The struggle is constant. It hasn't gone away and it hasn't gotten any better. I'm telling you, I've been here a long time and it has not changed. Little bits and pieces here and there, but when you consider for my life, it's not much better than when I was a kid. Still struggling with the same thing, like Michael said. When you go out, you don't know if you're going to come home or not, and that was the same thing that I was dealing with as a kid, and things that happened in our neighborhood. So the conversation has to be continued, and we have to talk to everyone. Not just to ourselves, we have to talk to everyone. And again, silence is acceptance. So when you're out there, you see something or somebody says something, don't be nice. And you don't have to actually get into their face, but you can make a comment, you know? And even when people don't respond, if you can get them to think just for a second, when they get alone, they think about what you said, it might help. It might help them to do something. The thing is to get them to think and also make it uncomfortable. We've been uncomfortable for our entire lives. It's time for them to be just as uncomfortable as we are. But we're uncomfortable for real because we're not allowed things. We're denied. We don't have that privilege. So again, people need to be uncomfortable. They need to be uncomfortable just like people of color are.
Okay. Thanks again to everybody. And Natasha, thanks for this really hard question that I got to try to figure out answer to. One thing I would say is between now and April 4th, which is the day Dr. King was assassinated, read a book by him or by somebody who, you know, is going to give you some real knowledge about Dr. King. Especially if you've not ever read anything by him and you're only getting your information from other people. If that's the case, definitely read one of his books. But try to do that every year. I try to do that every year because it's like 11 weeks between his birthday and his death. So that's a lot of time to read a book. I also would say gain some new skills. And by that, I mean, like I'm taking a mediation course. So I can learn how to be a better mediator. They'll give you some skills to be able to do what Mike D just talked about, you know, because it takes skill to approach people or to intervene and when you see something, you know. So find something and just get some new skills to be able to do that. And then lastly, again, kind of reiterating what Michael was saying is be uncomfortable. By that, I'm gonna say to us, because all of us are probably activists that are on this call and watching. So I know sometimes I'm like, I don't need to do that because I do enough. But the thing is, if you're not always trying to push your comfort zone, then you're really not doing enough. You always got to try to expand your comfort zone, and learn and feel uncomfortable, because you gain strength in that and you become a better person through being uncomfortable and facing yourself. And I really try to practice that. And sometimes I have to say I've been a little depressed at myself. But the thing is, if I'm able to face that, that's going to make me a better person because I'm really working at it. If I don't face it, I'm just being that person, trying to pretend like I'm not being that person, right? So that's really the bad thing. All right. So those would be the three things that I would say try to do. Oh, one more other. Start sending cards out to people you care about and love, people that you think about, but you know, you haven't reached out to. Write them a nice note, send them a card, just so people know. We got to start spreading love, and writing cards and telling people how much you care about them and stuff like that is a way to do. So thanks.
I got a postcard hanging right here from Michael. I received it a couple days ago in the mail, and it lit my heart up. You know what I'm saying? It just opened up my heart.
Thank you, brother.
It was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And I have your address, so I will send you a response as well. It creates that communication path. You know, growing through, Michael's talking about growing through the hardships. You know, you go through ups and downs. If you perceive your challenges as a hardship, if you perceive it as something that's coming against you because you did something wrong, well, then you're going to make that true, because, you know, it ties into, if you believe you can, and if you believe you can't. So if you believe that your struggle and your obstacle is coming against you because of something you did wrong, then that's what it's going to manifest as in your life. If it's coming to you because you need to learn something and grow through something, then, and that's the way you look at it, then that's what you're going to get on the other end of it. So you really get what you put in. Live by the 4 agreements if you can. Don't take things personal. You know what I'm saying? If you can live by the 4 agreements in your life, look up the 4 agreements and live by them. Most of us fail. We take so many things personally, and we really have to be selfless in our ability to love people who probably don't know how to love back, to teach them how to love. So you have to be able to give of yourself, and you have to be vulnerable, and that's a real thing. In this time right now, I think those are the actionable things that you can do. You can communicate, you can call people. Communication is a 2-way street. It works 2 ways. If you're feeling like somebody hasn't talked to you in a while, or, you know, I wish I just reach out and call, because they need it. Somebody needs that call. So I think that's probably the most valuable thing I would say to do right now. And I really love what Michael said. Educate yourself, learn something, learn a new skill, share a new skill. If you're learning new skills, you can be sharing, you can share every day. People need other people. So, yeah, I think that's what I would say to that.
I really appreciate being invited in and having the opportunity to speak on this panel. And I've been thinking a bit about, you know, my experience in the military and conversations I've had with fellow white people, you know, who are probably the only people on the planet who have the luxury of sitting back and talking about how racism ended, you know, decades ago, and that the world isn't a racist place anymore. And I think, if anything, the last 4 years have made plain for a lot of people who might have been sitting in ignorance before, that racism is alive and well, that white supremacy is alive and well, that that all sorts of otherisms are alive and well. And I think about being in the military and how we were always taught you're not allowed to have your own opinion, and that you can't talk about anything political, that we aren't there as a person, we're there to be part of the machine. And you would even joke about it, how you're not, even your body isn't yours anymore, that if you got hurt or you got a sunburn, you could be brought up on charges because you are damaging government property. And I know in the 90s they were trying to change things, and they would have this, kind of bullshit addressing racism and sexism in the ranks. And it would be that one day of training, and they would check the box, and everybody sat there, and they went to the, the hall and had this presentation, and then they would just carry on living life as usual the rest of the time until the next year comes around and they had to do the annual training again. And I would just encourage people who are in the military, particularly white people, to think about how racism and sexism and homophobia and transphobia are used to encourage you to be willing to kill other people for, and we would even joke about it, that we're a tool to protect the assets of the rich few. But I mean, that's that joke that we joke about. I mean, people try to take it with, the reality sucks, so you try to joke about it. But I think for people who have that privilege of being removed from maybe the intensity of that reality or that lived experience, to think about it maybe a bit more deeply than they have in the past, to maybe actually think about racism in the ranks and sexism in the ranks, and all those ways that I mean, heck, in the military they even pit soldiers against one another in order to, I mean, if you can dehumanize your fellow soldiers, then you can dehumanize anybody. So maybe it's, we often say that the military is really good at making people angry, and then focusing that anger in a way that helps the establishment and the status quo. And then they let you out, and you don't know how to turn that anger back off. And I mean, there's so much that could be said just about that. But people getting out who have anger, and they don't really know what to do about that, get help. Talk to people, talk to anybody. Emailing Veterans for Peace, people are usually willing and able to help people talk through different ideas and try to make sense of what's going on right now. And that's true. People who are hearing Trump and thinking he's got the right way forward, and we've seen how that's worked not so well. So at any rate, we're all here to help support one another, and I just again appreciate this time, and I will pass it on now to Jamala.
So I was smiling when you say if you're really angry, you need to get some help. And I pride myself on being an angry Black woman, because that's the only way for me to keep moving, because all of this stuff around is going to make you angry. But I can tell you, when COVID hit, my anger went to another level, and I could tell that. My body could tell it. The first 11 deaths in the St. Louis region were all African Americans, and most of them women. So yeah, it got personal real quick. It went back to also when I talked about the disparities in healthcare, that we were going to be the ones most vulnerable. We were going to be the casualties. We were going to be the collateral damage of what COVID brought. So then you have the flaunting of people, white racist people, refusing to wear masks, that is, killing my people. There's no way that I can be like good, okay with that. And so I did check myself into a deep breathing and meditation class for 6 weeks, because somebody was going to get hurt, because it's like beyond anger at that point. It's like, now y'all, deliberately killing folks because you know what the consequences are. You're refusing to wear masks, which could save lives. So, I just, I hear that, and I also want white people who are listening to understand that there's not going to be Black and brown people that are going to dialogue like we are. Some of them are just going to come out swinging, and you need to understand that, and you need to understand why they are filled with rage. I know young men who have a diet of watching YouTube and the internet and all of these incidences where Black people are being defiled and disrespected. They're watching that like nonstop. I mean, and every time I say, turn it off, you need to get some, it's almost addictive. And so so at a certain point, those people, that's going to have to come out somewhere. And so I'm just saying, you just got to understand that the conditions that are being created by white supremacy and the collaboration and complicity with that is what's going to take this thing over the top again. I mean, we looking at, future Ferguson, Missouri's all over the place. So I want folks to know more, to do more, but I think there's some fundamental things that have to be done, and we just got to be ready for whatever. We have to be versatile to be able to take whatever's going to come our way and try to deal with it. And that's what I've really been doing for this last year. And it's been hard. It's been hard as an organizer because you used to being out talking with people, engaging with people, and instead you're isolated and you're on Zooms like this. Although I'm happy to meet new friends like Miles and Adrian, but the interaction and the hugging and like all of that's been taken, and that's having an impact on our psyche as well. So I just say do some self-care before you go out to battle each day because you're gonna need it. That armor is that self-care and understanding who you are, what you are, and what your role is going to be in this country as a person of African descent. I don't know who I'm supposed to pass it on to.
No.
Natasha? Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing y'all's vibrations. And, I would just say, and just really end on a call to just recent action. Like, I'm very clear that what we saw at the nation's capital is not solely a reflection of the outgoing president. When I was on active duty under President Obama, these folks were organizing and planning this. So this is at a minimum a decade in the making. And so for me, it was a little bit of vindication, a little in terms of, okay, at least, I had some understanding that we knew, the federal government have known. There's been plenty of articles written over the years that have talked about the infiltration of white supremacists and extremists, not just in our nation's military, but in our police departments and sheriff departments, and how that's a cycle. We see many veterans are onboarded after their active duty time into these police departments. And so just kind of saying that, I'm also like really clear that we have to kind of tell the truth in order to grow in this moment. Having having difficult conversations is critically important for us to be able to grow from this. And difficult conversations on the other side of that is true peace, not just at home, but abroad. And I think that is why we're here today. Thank y'all for being with us. Move past the uncomfort of having difficult conversations in every community. For someone that you see at the national level that inspires you, there's someone in your zip code that is just as bold, just as organized, and trying to move the people. So as veterans, use your unique skills in your community to grow stronger together, right? And so again, thank y'all for being here. I think we are getting ready to hand it over to Jerry, who's going to share with us about nuclear weapons and the significance of the day. The floor is yours.
You're on mute, Gary.
Is that better? Thank you, Natasha, and it's an honor to be with you all. I'm learning a lot. This is really amazing. It's such a, Veterans for Peace is so blessed with the wisdom of African-American activists, both younger and older. It makes such a difference to have this kind of discussion about Martin Luther King. So I'm happy to be somehow almost accidentally having my picture framed right there amongst all of you on my screen here. But I'm not going to put you through another rap. A couple of brothers, members from San Diego Veterans for Peace, and I were going to do a little bit of a spiel about the nuclear disarmament work of Veterans for Peace and its future possibilities. But we don't really think it's appropriate to do that right now. We think we should end with the vibrations that you all have shared with us, and save that for another day, except to say that, of course, Martin Luther King, if he were alive, he would be celebrated today. He'd probably be leading some of the celebrations for the implementation of the United Nations Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which went into effect today, January 22nd, 2021, just a few days after Martin Luther King's birthday celebration. So that's something to be thinking about. We're going to be stepping up our work. Actually, we're going to be, we're having our first meeting in a long time of the Veterans for Peace Nuclear Abolition Working Group on February 4th, 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be getting all that information out to people other ways. The VFP chapter in San Diego is doing some really good work getting local city councils to pass resolutions in support of nuclear abolition. So there's a lot to share. But I'll just say, given the discussion today, I would only say that I think the nuclear disarmament movement really needs to reemerge among with other movements. And it, like the broader peace movement, both have to be in coalition with the struggles for racial justice, with the struggles for environmental and economic justice. And we all win together, or we probably don't win at all. So we are in the process of building a new kind of movement, what Veterans for Peace refers to as peace at home, peace abroad. And you all are providing a tremendous leadership in that regard. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. This has been great. Stay tuned with us as we continue this journey. We just dropped a link in the chat, which we feel like is some necessary education. You probably haven't seen a reflection of this Dr. King, which was a 1967 interview where you see the evolution of Dr. King and his connections between militarism and the military industrial complex to the local community and neighborhood. And so to hear him reflect on the dream in this way is the most profound, and I'll argue his most it's just very clear why we don't see it discussed and well learned or taught in our nation's classrooms. So click that link to save and watch it as you have capacity. It's about 27 minutes. And I think in that short amount of time, it will change your perspective of Dr. King and what is really a call to action. So stay engaged. This coming Wednesday on StandDown at 5 p.m. Eastern, we are going to have Bill Fletcher on the show, who is going to provide just a wealth of, I'll just say, education around where we are in this moment. And again, how we stay together in a community that continues to work for peace. In order to have peace, we have to look at it as a verb, which means that we all have a role to play. No role is too small. Stay engaged. And we will see you here in the near future. Stay engaged with Veterans for Peace. If you're not a member, membership is open to not just veterans, but also those who support peace at home and abroad. Thank you all. Have a good evening. Peace.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thanks,
Thank
Michael.
you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank y'all
Mike.
for tuning in. Thanks for being here with us.
Yes. Y'all were dope. Thank you.
Are we gonna go? We're gonna share Brittany, right?
Yes.
All right.
Please.
Beautiful.
Not everybody. See her. Appreciate it.
Let them hear your voice, y'all. Say thank you. Share your voice.
Yeah.
They loved us tonight, so give
Thank
that
you,
love
everybody.
back. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
We're gonna go out with "Be With You" by Brittany Chantel, a song about equality, human rights, and recognizing people as they are.
Always on my mind, babe. I need you all the time. At least that's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about you. Yeah, it's been so many years. We shed so many tears together. Shed too many tears. Whatever, whatever. See, I've been thinking so emotional. What we had was real, and I know you know. See, I just really wanna be with you. I just wanna be with you. Should we go through the motions? Oh, do we gotta leave, gotta let this go? Cause I just really wanna be with you. I just wanna be with you. Should we go through the motions? Oh, do we gotta leave, gotta let this go? Cause I just really wanna be with you. I just wanna be with you. I'm feeling left behind, babe. You got the money on your grind. At least that's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about you, yeah. It's been so many years. We had so many fears together. Had too many fears, whatever, whatever. See, I've been thinking so emotional. What we had was real, and I know you know. See, I just really wanna be with you. I just wanna be with you. Should we go through the motions? Oh, do we gotta leave, gotta let this go? Cause I just really wanna be with you. I just wanna be with you. Should we go through the motions? Oh, do we gotta leave, gotta let this go? Cause I just really wanna be with you. I just wanna be with you.